All right, so we got all our paint fixes in, and we've got our screen kind of on top of the smartphone. It seems to be sticking pretty good, but it could still use some work. First of all, it looks to me like the graphic is way too sharp compared to the background. So let's drop in a blur node. I'm going to switch this to RGBA because that's all I care about modifying. And we'll adjust that till it feels about right. Now, if this was a lot of defocus, we might need to worry about the difference between a blur and a defocus because they are distinctly different. But in this case, it's close enough. It's a small enough radius of blur or defocus that I'm just going to use the blur node to achieve the effect. And it seems to me like the screen is maybe still a bit bright, so let's drop in a grade node as well. I'm going to use the gain control to just darken this down to where the screen feels more like it fits the environment or the exposure of this shot. So it is a luminous screen, so maybe I could go a little bit on the bright side, but I don't want to go crazy. I want it to look pleasant. That looks pleasant. I think I'll leave it there. Motion blur is not on yet, so let's go ahead and turn on motion blur in our corner pin here by turning this up to at least 1, not -1, 1. And now we're generating motion blur. And we'll run out of flipbook. I'm going to make sure that full frame updates are turned on. And I'm going to hit the play button. Well, that looks pretty good, but what I'm noticing is that it seems like the track is slipping ever so slightly when there's a quick motion in the screen. Let me see if I can find a good moment. Right there, it seems to separate away and slip. There we go. This is usually a side effect of the fact that the original tracking markers have some motion blur of their own or some breathing that makes them grow and shrink. And the tracker will do its best fit match of that breathing effect, which usually will find something in the middle of that motion blur. So one way that you can minimize the visual representation of this in the output motion blur is to switch this to centered. It's not perfect, but usually it'll help a little bit. So let's see if this makes a difference in terms of hiding some of that breathing effect. All right, that's definitely an improvement. It seems like the breathing has gone away. The track seems a little more solid, not like it's bouncing around or slipping around quite so much. So let's move on to the next thing. We've got to add our little movie of the Great Train Robbery into the viewer here. The easiest way to position a clip in time is using the dope sheet. So let's select the read node and get its properties into the properties bin that we want to edit the time offset on. And well, let's view that as well. I'll put it on the #1 viewer. And in order to nudge it around in time, if we go to the dope sheet, you can see that the dope sheet represents the clip as a graphical bar that shows the duration of the clip. You can position the clip by dragging it around, and you can trim the clip by grabbing the ends and dragging them in like you would in a nonlinear editing system. We're really only interested in positioning this clip in time, so I'm going to concentrate just on that. You can zoom in and out just as you would in the curve editor if you need finer control. Now, I want the title card from the movie to cut off right around frame 48. So I'm going to position the playhead at 48 and then drag this clip around until I find the title card. There we go. The title card for the movie. And then just nudge it. There we go. So now at around frame 48, 49, I'm getting the action that I like, the cue that is the title card going away and the movie starting. Let's go back to the node graph. we're going to create a little mini comp where we composite this screen over our static background. So I'm going to use a merge node, select the first input, select the second input, B, and then hit M to create a merge node. And then to position this, I'm going to use a transform node, hit T, and I can grab that and move it where I want over the background. Scale that, nudge that around. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to tap this scale up just a bit to make it fill the frame a little bit better. And I don't like this sepia tone look, so let's desaturate this. We'll use a saturation node and suck some of that sepia tone look, make it look more like a normal black and white movie. Now when we view it down here at the bottom of the comp, my movie is already flowing all the way through the comp, stuck onto my screen. My match move, corner pin match move is doing a great job of sticking it on. Let's make another flipbook. I think this thing's done. Ready to put a fork in this bad boy. Well, that's looking pretty good. I think that's done. So your assignment this week is to replicate this exercise, take one of the provided screens and corner pin it onto this smartphone, or you can create your own screen from either the pieces I've provided or by creating your own artwork and tracking it on to the screen. The only major point that you must hit is that I want some kind of story point to be on the screen. So for example, in this shot, there's a little movie playing on the screen, and there's a cue that happens where the title switches over. This type of shot's very common in movie making because it's very difficult to choreograph the action on, say, a television screen or a computer monitor or a smartphone throughout the continuity of a sequence. But if you put it in post, you can control when those cues happen. So the assignment really, in addition to tracking on the artwork, is to create some kind of action or cue or story point that occurs on the screen during the duration of this 151 frame shot.